Do you have a book in you? Have you ever thought of writing a book? We all have a story to tell. Everyone has a story. Maybe you were preparing to collect your thoughts, sat at your computer, and then you stopped and thought, only a special type of person can do that. It's just not me. You and many other people have had those same thoughts. And guess what? I did write a book. And if I can, so can you. There are so many ways people can begin their book writing, and mine was because I had so many stories and anecdotes about my personality observations of people. I thought, hey, why not share these with the people I'm observing? I'm going to tell you how my book writing went according to my personality type, an ESFP. I'm an extrovert. I gain my energy from the external world of people and events. I call on my involvements in my external world to enrich my workshops and presentations with real-life examples of personality tools that my audience can relate to. That's my jam. My long-suffering family have had their personalities exposed to the world over and over in my passionate journey to teach people about learning about their personalities and how they can enhance and improve every relationship they have, including those with themselves. Sorry, gang. I just want to sing it from the rooftops, literally in my extroverted style. I happened to show a friend whose profile is very big picture, thinking, structured type. My total opposite, in fact. She decided my stories would make a wonderful book, and that's how it started. Of course, I loved the idea, but was I really interested in going down the journey of putting a book together? However, she had a purpose now. She set me tasks and timelines and goals. My stress levels rose. This is not my natural style. My type is much more interested in being with people, chatting, not in forced time sitting alone writing. I'm a flexible, relaxed person who literally hates deadlines and timetables. But she had faith in me. She used her understanding of type every day, and she knew how to work with me. Plus, I had the passion and desire to do this. And that's a biggie. I had the passion and I had the desire to do this. So together, over 3 years, we persevered. Yes, there were struggles, but we did it. Her diligently kicking my ass every month, and me finding my balance and getting my stuff to her at the very last minute. So I found my writing office, the coffee shop. In a very busy coffee shop, I can concentrate, but feel like I'm out in the world. So many coffees later, and many different coffee shops later, my book baby was born. I did it. I'm Kate Mason, and welcome to Personalities, Parenting and Partners. This is the podcast that connects you to the ones you care about the most. In this episode of Personalities, Parenting and Partners, we're going to talk about whether we all have a book inside our heads to share with the world. And if we do, how we would like to write it, and where do we begin? When I'd finished my book and I needed my book to be edited, I found a wonderful book coach and editor to help me. And she's here today to talk to us about how you can write your book too. Kelly's MBTI type is an ISFP. ISFPs are quiet and reserved and known for being peaceful, caring and considerate. They have an easygoing attitude and tend to accept people as they are. They tend to have open minds, approaching life, new experiences and people with a grounded warmth. Their ability to stay in the moment helps them uncover exciting potentials. They're carefully observant of the practical needs of other people and often step in with quiet, unassuming assistance at just the moment it's needed. As a best-selling book coach, editor and creator of the Expert Author Academy, Kelly is an editor and writing coach with a love for deep diving into brains and businesses. Through her one-to-one work and online program, she provides an action-by-action process that speeds up the time it takes to produce your best book and turns overwhelm and self-doubt into momentum and excitement for writing. Hi Kelly, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Kate. I'm very excited to be here. Feels like a long time coming since working on your book and then having this conversation.
It does. And as you and I have been talking a lot before we did this interview, there's so much to talk about. we've kind of got a lot in common in our personality types, and it's just interesting to see it put into a different context with the job that you do and what you do with your life.
Yeah.
So my first question to you is going to be, was there a book that changed your life?
I think many books have changed my life. I don't actually think I could nail one. I actually would probably say reading has changed my life. Like, I've always been an avid reader, and I can see it in part because of the parenting, I suppose, that I have, and probably my personality as well. Like, I always remember being at the library with my mum, always being around parents who were reading. My brother is an avid reader. And I've read so much and so many different things over the course of my life, like from a very, very early age.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved the do-it-yourself adventure books where you chose like the paths yourself. Now that's probably a P part of my personality coming out there, where a little bit of spontaneity and things that you kind of made up along the way. Always read a lot of fiction, always equally read a lot of non-fiction. And even to this day, in my work, I only work with non-fiction because fiction is my playground and that's my kind of escape. But equally, I will read a fiction book and still be inspired by it and use things that I've learned from the fiction book in my non-fiction writing. So I think reading is just... it opens your eyes up to the world and so many different things. You take particular things from particular stories and implement that into your life. So
and the great part about today is that you don't actually have to be a book reader to get all of that information anymore, because my children have nearly not read a book in their life, but they have other ways of getting that now and listening to it and having it from different sources, because I was a prolific book reader as well. So I totally understand, losing yourself in a book is just one of the best things that you can do in life. It's a wonderful thing. So we're talking about type, and you're talking about yourself as a type, using the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. So how did that influence your life and what you do today, your personality?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think even when we were talking, it's like, so for years, I actually thought I was an extrovert, and I would always test on Myers-Briggs and always come up as an E. And it wasn't until, so I've been with my husband Cam for 8 years. And when he first met me, he was like, there is no way on earth that you are an extrovert. And I was like, I am. I test all the time. I'm always an E. I'm actually exactly the same as you. So he's a ENFP.
Right.
I'm exactly the same. I mean, he was like, no way, you are not an extrovert. Like, I would eat my hat today if you were an extrovert. And so it wasn't until, even really a few years ago that I kind of realised, I think I read Susan Cain's book, and she had like a stripped down version, a 10-question thing. And I was like, oh no, I am like, what have I been doing half my life? And I actually think, upon reflection that, like a lot of introverts, I think we've learnt to be extroverts, almost like, done a lot of things and been encouraged to do a lot of things, maybe to feel like you're fitting in, and kind of, and I've learnt to be, I've been an introvert in an extrovert world. And some people will probably say I'm an extroverted introvert. So, and even, conversation with friends at the beach the other day, they were really surprised, like, oh, you're an introvert? I would never have guessed that.
But it is that what you're saying too is an introvert has to survive in an extrovert's world. So every day you're extroverting, and you can become really, really good at it. And my son, he insists he's an ambivert. But I go back to energy all the time when we talk about this, and that's where people have to really get back to is, how am I energized? Because you may be amazing with people and talking and extroverting, but if it's de-energizing and you need time to build your energy back up after going out into the world, then you know that you're an introvert. But yes, so many introverts extrovert really well.
Yeah, and that's a really good summary, Kate, because that's like there is no way on earth in that context that I am an extrovert.
Right.
Like and it is interesting. Like even on the weekend, like I can get into extroverted moods, and it's almost like my way of coping with being in big groups sometimes is to become even more extroverted.
With you.
And then close the
Yes.
door and I'll
Yes.
collapse. I'll be like whoa, oh my God. Like, it's like you need to take a 5-day break to recuperate. But yeah, it's interesting. It's like a little cycle. It's almost like when you find yourself in those circles, you become that even more. And yeah, and it can be, yeah, it's really funny. So I think the energy thing has been crucial, and I guess in that in the context of the question that you asked with the reading and stuff like that.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
my downtime. That's how I re-energize. People might sit and watch Netflix or whatever. Like, I don't watch TV. Like, people often remark, like, because a lot of people will set out, they might have a goal, I'm going to read 52 books in a year or whatever. That's kind of normal for me, like, without trying, because my spare time is
That's your hobby.
spent reading.
Yep.
So I will read before bed. I will read, like, it's actually my way of recharging. I turn internal, I switch off. I know it sounds counterintuitive because I think my husband can't understand this sometimes. He's like, but your brain's still going because you're reading. But for me, it's almost like daydreaming, and that's why that fiction, a lot of the reading at night is not non-fiction, it's fiction. So it's almost like escaping to another world. I'm not thinking about my world at all. I'm getting lost in a book. And that's why it's always fiction at night. And that will make me tired, and that will help me recharge, and that will help me recap. But it drives my extroverted husband nuts.
Of course it does. Of course it does. We're on a public holiday here, and I've got several things planned. I'm the extrovert, and my husband's sitting there. We had a big day yesterday, and he's sitting there going, it's a public holiday. It's supposed to be quiet. We're not supposed to be doing anything. And I'm like, really? Why, just because it's a public holiday, do we have to sit home and be quiet? That doesn't make sense to me. So it is very different headsets around these things.
Yeah, like, so it was actually my birthday on Friday, and my husband surprised me with
Happy
a night.
birthday.
Thank you. My husband surprised me with a night away, and my Kindle was banned from coming.
Oh.
Because
so he wanted full attention.
He wanted full attention. It was like, yeah. So I was like, "Can I bring the book?" No, the book is not coming. The book is staying here.
Oh, I hope you had a good time though.
Oh, it was brilliant. But yeah,
excellent.
It's
yes. Yeah. That you're not allowed to bring your hobby and your relaxation with you. You're there to have fun.
And
absolutely.
It is. It's definitely something that I think as time has gone on, I've embraced my introvertedness more than ever. I don't know if that's an age thing, or you just become more comfortable being who you are. You kind of recognize things a lot more.
And you can you also recognize that there are a lot of strengths around that too. And embracing, as I spoke about with Steph Noon the other week, embracing your strengths is often better than battling your weaknesses and trying to create them as strengths. So as long as those strengths are good strengths moving forward, your introversion is a great strength in what you do with your work. In that you've got headspace, you're sitting there, you're concentrating. I would be fluffing around like a butterfly, not being able to concentrate it the way that you do and the way you put things together. So how do you ever pick up people's personality types while you're working with them?
Oh, 100%. Probably not so much in Myers-Briggs because it's not my training, but I developed four writing personalities types based on what I was seeing from working with people. And it's interesting because it was helpful for me, but it was more so helpful for other people to understand. Because I think when it comes to writing, it's actually about understanding how you process information and how you create the right space. So the four, just briefly, because there is a quiz that you can do, and I'll put that in the show notes for people.
That would be
Because I
lovely.
think you did this as well, Kate.
I did, and I was there. I could see myself. I got everything that was every box ticked that was the personality type of me as a writer. So yes,
Yeah,
I did.
so the first kind of type is storytellers, and they will be people who predominantly can write stories like anything. Like everything is told in a story, an example, something from life, And I tend to find with storytellers, there's a lot. So they're writing a lot of stuff. And I guess, could I say that people in this category would be extroverts? I'm not sure, but I probably wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them were pulling on, those examples and being able to use those stories. The issue is with all of the stories is what's the cohesive message behind them? Because we tend to tell a lot of stories and then there aren't main messages. So when I work with storytellers, there's a lot of editing involved in terms of, but what's the 2 or 3 stories? What are their relevance to what you're actually trying to say, what the main point is? The flip side of
I think that was me.
Because your stories in the book are really strong. Like those examples that you pulled on in terms of your family and even friends and like certain situations, like that's a really classic storyteller. But a lot of people find that really hard. And I'd actually say, so the flip side is deep thinkers. And I would definitely probably say that deep thinkers would tend to be in general introverted, because I would put myself in this bracket. So taking their time to slowly process information, they need to sort of do a lot of thinking and do a lot of things before they feel confident about almost putting those words onto page. And the issue with this is that, you can tend to be perfectionists, really hard to even like take a step forward, over analyzing, getting stuck into analysis paralysis because nothing's ever the right thing. How do you, always looking for the solution or the one thing, the one problem, etc., etc. So these people tend to get stuck. And from my own experience, like I used to be a real deep punisher. So I would sit at my laptop in front of a blank screen for like hours and hours and hours. I can't move until I finish this paragraph. And all that did was add anxiety and even more analysis paralysis, because you're not tapping into those creative brain spaces. So storytellers almost need to be a bit more like deep thinkers, and deep thinkers need to be a bit more like storytellers. So there's no right and wrong, and these things aren't bad, but understanding what you need to do. So when I work and coach with deep thinkers, it's more about don't overthink about it. Start writing, like do writing exercises to warm up, like get into a different headspace. The other one, which I know that you're probably heavy in, was the entrepreneur. So I work with a lot of visionary people, a lot of ideas, a lot of this could say that. I'll write it like this, but I'll turn it around. Maybe like saying it like this is going to be different or better. So there's lots of ideas, but again, it's like, but what is the one idea? It's almost like finding that focus to really nail that what is one idea, because it's really great having ideas. But if you've got multiple ideas, like, a really great example of this is people who say that they're writing 5 books. Oh, I've got 5 books. I'm like, yeah, okay, so why don't you actually focus on writing 1 book first and finishing it? It's like your classic case of always looking for something better or different.
And not sitting in the actual process of doing it.
Not sitting in the yeah. And, on the flip side, the great thing about it is like entrepreneurs are really passionate about their topics and they've got a lot to say, and you can feel that in their writing. But yeah, it's being able to apply discipline and focus, and really hone in on those things so that, and almost to see, like it is a step process. So you got to write 1 book before you can get to your next book. You don't have to write all 5 books at once, that type of thing. So then there's the mastermind, and the masterminds just tend to be really heavy on logic. So facts, statistics, like that credibility bent is really, really high. So they might have come from an academic background, but not always. I remember working with a guy who was really heavy in a mastermind, and his case stories and his like knowledge of, you know, different companies and all these types of things was incredible and really, really rich. But the issue is with that is that the writing voice can be stripped out. So the content can tend to be quite dry and bland. So I remember when I was working with him, like part of the coaching was like, get your rant on, give yourself permission to, you know, get really passionate. It's almost like that flip side. So the entrepreneurs, you know, why are you passionate about what you do? So bringing that kind of storytelling aspect into it and bringing that richness into it, because without that, in terms of your writing, you're going to lose that connection and that personal connection with your audience.
And so this is where your guidance is really, really important, because that you're actually working on their weaknesses, to tell the truth. You know, like you're actually saying rant, and there's not necessarily a rant in them. So you're encouraging that. And I guess the whole idea of your job is to encourage and help and put it into their books. So sometimes is that really hard? You know, like getting that out of a person who has got that different headset.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is why, in a lot of ways, it's why I do what I do and how it works, because I don't actually believe that there's a one-size-fits-all approach for writing a book.
I agree.
Or publishing either. And I think it's a very unique thing. And I mean, this is the trap I think a lot of writers fall into as well, because it's very easy to look at the quotes on Instagram and look at the way that Hemingway wrote and his routines. And James Patterson is a prolific writer who gets up at 5 a.m. every day and bangs out 1,000 words, you know, for 7 days a week, whatever it is.
Yes.
But those models don't always, well, one, they don't always work for us, because you've got to remember they're professional writers, and a lot of us writing books are not necessarily professional writers. And two, it is about finding what works for you. So I think you can take elements of things and you can experiment. But what works for James Patterson is not going to work for Kate.
No,
not
not
and
at all.
It is a very individual, because of your personalities and the way, you know, if you strip that out, it's about the way you process information, the way you think, the way that you will sit and organize yourself to write, the kind of environment you need to be in to kind of tap into your creativity. That's actually the real source, you know, secret, I suppose, to actually helping people write. And that's been kind of developed. You know, my process for doing that is kind of quite intuitive, but also based on what I know I've experienced because of, you know, what I said before about being the deep thinker. I was a punisher. I didn't write in the right way. I set myself up in so many ways that was actually stifling and made things worse. And it was only by developing these and kind of realizing and tapping into what works for me and making those allowances that I kind of developed that process for things, so that it's been honed from knowing myself, but then also working with those different personalities to kind of tap in and create, you know, help people coach them towards making the right choices that are right for them. So if I can just give you an example, Kate, like just recently I was doing a coaching session last week, and so I provide people with a process. This is probably my S type coming out. Like there's a method, right? Because if you don't have a method to it, then you're just winging it, and that's not going to work either. So there is a stepped kind of process, but I tell people to think of it like a stencil.
Right.
So I'm going to give you the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ... and at the end of it, it's going to look like a rabbit. But along the way, you're going to add in a 0.5 or move things out, color outside the lines, blah, blah, blah. So at the end of it, yours is going to look like an eagle. So it's a guide, but it's not necessarily a formula. And it's really about helping people unpack and move things according to what works for them. So someone I was working with this week was stuck because she sort of, you know, she got to like a certain level and had all her book planned out, blah, 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 and then didn't know what to do next and was really like struggling, and probably had spent like 4 weeks not doing anything because really grappling with how to turn it around in having been time poor, doing a lot of client work, so not really digging in and spending or having a great space for her work. And she asked me, she said, I was like, okay, so I've got like an hour before we chat. What would be the best use of that hour? And actually, like, I was, the thing was, the best use would be come and have a chat to me. So we did the session, because what I would have said in terms of, well, this is how I would spend that hour doing this, and that, what we discovered wasn't going to work for her, because she's big picture, visionary, visual. And so, through unpacking that, she's very whiteboardy. So I was like, okay, so you've got all that on your thing. Like I would spend, and she unpacked, I want to put that visually on a board. So she hung up from that phone call, and within 30 minutes, she'd sent me a picture of all these Post-it notes and all of her book mapped out perfectly on this board. And so she'd been struggling with that for 4 weeks.
And all she needed to do was 30
minutes,
put it on a board.
And had unpacked that, because that's what would have worked for her. And so that's a really good example of what I do, because it's actually helping people unpack that for themselves.
And it is a pity she didn't get to you earlier, because like you say, as an intuitive person, unpacking their brain and brainstorming and putting it on a whiteboard. I never use a whiteboard because I'm a sensing type, and I don't. We've had several around the house, never use them. But it is really, really important for them to unpack their head. And like you say, without you there, she would have been sitting with all that bottled up inside forever and possibly never ever broken through that limit that she was at the time.
Yeah.
So with your coaching, do you prefer to coach from the very beginning? Because I came into Kelly at the end of my story writing, and she was a bit like, oh, no, I don't know whether I can deal with this. Like, I really want to start you at the beginning. And I'm like, no, I've got the whole thing ready. I just want you to look at it for me. So your preference is definitely that people begin with you and you get stepped through your process. Is there any particular, apart from people coming in at the end, is there any particular reason? Is it because you feel that guiding them creates a better book, or how does that work for you?
Mainly because what happens is, so traditionally people will I am traditionally, I guess, an editor. So people think of an editor as, I'm going to write my book, then I'm going to hire an editor to help me fix up like the words and the language. So that for me is too late, because words is the icing on the cake, but your thoughts, your ideas, your intellectual property, that's the currency, and that's the foundational piece. So without looking at a manuscript, I can already tell you, I'm not sure on the audience. I don't know where the market fit or the category is. I'm not sure. There's too many different ideas in here. There's no logical sequence or flow. It's like, without even looking at something, you can already see what's going to. So what was happening was when I first started this, people would come to me with a manuscript and I'd say, look, I'm not if you want your words and your language fixed up, I'm not that editor for you, because I can see what's in here and there's so much more potential in here. And if we backtrack a bit and figure out some of these things first, then we can create such a much better product. And so nobody consequently went away.
No.
But what happens is, people might spend months, years even working on this manuscript, and then come to me and I'm saying, we need to backtrack. So the preference is always start early with someone like me, because you're saving yourself heartache at the back of the end.
Yep. So anyone out there, if you are thinking about a book, do it now. Contact someone like Kelly before you start and before you finish, and you end up going, coming to this state of a book, like finishing like I had done. You were very, very kind and helped me out. But it is a really interesting process, because I would never have thought that I'm the same as the people you're talking about. I would have gone, oh, well, my book's ready now, I'll just take it to an editor. But like you say, when you going through the whole process with someone can help create such a different book and possibly a better book, and have it, rather than go backtracking and doing more work on it, you've actually got someone to help you through the process. So when you were doing, I'm getting back to me now. Here we go. Here's the extrovert. Divert it back to me. So how did my book on personalities and parenting help you understand your parenting styles and your children? You knew how you and your husband were parenting your children, how you relate to your children.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because this is the thing. I mean, this is the beauty of my work, is whoever I'm working with, I'm learning from.
Yes.
And I'll actually do what they're teaching or implement in the content that I'm working on. I think about and reflect on my individual circumstances. Like, I put it into practice as I'm doing it. So your book was awesome, because there was, I talked a bit about my husband and I, and the introvert extrovert. Like, that was kind of an in-running joke, right. And has been for years. And even to this day now, it's actually something that influences how we work together. So he works with me on my business. We obviously parent together. We do a lot of things together, and so communication is integral to everything that we do. I probably don't share enough, and he wants to hear and understand everything. So it's like the thing that I said at the start about the Kindle, understanding how I re-energize, but equally then we have to flip it.
Yes.
And understand what he needs. So there's a great example from COVID, which was, he actually came in because we work and we parent together, so it can be quite intense. And Friday nights, he would come in, and he came in one Friday and he was like, wanting to talk about the day, blah, blah, blah. And I'd been, on calls all day, and, he's like, he literally stood in the middle of the lounge room. He's like, I just want to have some meaningful conversation. And I looked at him and I was like, I'm sorry, mate, that's not me. Picked up my Kindle and walked out the door because I just couldn't,
nothing
was
left.
Just like different headspaces in terms of energy. So that actually spurred him to create Dad's Drinks, so in our community. So he was like, okay, all these blokes now are around, like more people working from home. I'm just going to put it out there on our little, we live in a small surf town. Put it out on the Surf Town Facebook page that I'm doing these dad drinks.
Yep.
Actually, it was just after work drinks originally, and it just happened to be that a lot of blokes turned up. The majority of them were blokes. And so every Friday, once a month, they meet, and it's grown into this massive thing. Like, they get minibuses to breweries. It's spawned into this huge, big monthly thing that's now Dad's
love
Drinks.
That. How much fun is that?
Yeah, and people actually don't realise that I created that, because I was the one that was like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to find something else, because I can't give you what you need on a Friday. And sometimes he's like, he'll come around to the Friday and he'll be like, I'm not sure if I'm going to go. And I'm like pushing him out the door. No, you need to go. You need to go. And
this is good for you. This is good for me.
This is good for you. Yeah, totally. So it's like small things like that have really, it's interesting actually with styles, because although I'm definitely a P with parenting, I'd actually say I'm a very heavy J when it comes to work. But that's something I've learned that I have to as running a business.
Yes. If you want to achieve something, sometimes you have to work in your opposite preference, don't you?
Yeah, and the scheduling. So I'm really diligent with scheduling. I take a lot of time to create schedules for my clients to make sure that I'm working at the right capacity and not overflowing. So our calendar dictates a lot of things, and he will use that to understand where my headspace is going to be on a weekend if I've been doing a lot of calls. I schedule my work week according to that. So deep work, my internal work is at the start of the week, and then I'll gradually open up to have conversations with people towards the end of the week. So there's lots of things that we've built into how I work that actually helps how we operate on a home life level as well. And that's
and keeps you energized.
Yeah, and that's really helpful for him as well, and to know where we're going to be at, and consequently that I remember when I started getting really heavy into schedules and stuff, because I was always so, oh no, I just do things intuitively, and I love having the spontaneity and blah blah blah. And actually what I realized with work was, the more those processes and schedules are built in, actually allows me to have more spontaneity. So that's
yes. It gives you more time, because while you're being
totally
spontaneous, you still have to squeeze all of that stuff in, don't you? And it ends up being quite disorganized, and you're squeezing in all these other areas. And then, having a schedule. I always remember someone saying to me, because I'm like you, once it's in your diary, it's in your diary. And then you've got a process and a place in there. So that's what I do now. I put things in the diary, and then I look in my diary, because I'm an extrovert, I'm busy making another social occasion. And I look in there and it's like, damn it. I actually can't do anything, because now I've got that space set aside. It's a really important space, and I can't touch it. So like you say, with your structuring of everything, it enables you to have free time on your weekends, because you're not sitting there fixing up the things you didn't do during the week. So a really important.
100%, because I don't work on weekends, and I think that's that link to family. So what I do in my work, you can't do, when you're a family and you're not an I, you're a we.
Yes.
So you realize that all of your decisions impact somebody else. And, that was a big learning lesson for me when I became a parent, because my thinking changed from an I. Even from being in a couple, you're still I's, you're still individuals. But when you've got a family, you're very much a we, and everything is, everything you do will impact somebody else. So by doing that in my work, it means I'm really I don't work weekends. I don't work evenings, because that's my family time. I only actually work 8 months of the year, because I take big breaks at summer, because I live in a surf town. So even summer, here is amazing. And when my kids and, when they're on school holidays, everything is kind of, so whenever I'm around my kids, I don't have my head in work. So that helps me with that family side of things. It helps us work collaboratively, especially with my husband, in a team, regardless of if it's at work, if it's parenting or whatever. Interestingly, I think with your book as well, I'd never actually thought, until I started working with you, I hadn't actually ever thought about my children in terms of their personality types, and applying it in terms of that overlay. That was a huge, this is all your work. So that was actually a huge thing for me. And I think, so my kids are still quite young, like Samson's just turning 8 and Leo has just turned 3. But we worked on this like a couple of years ago, because this was published last year. So it was probably 2 years ago when we were actually working together. I think even then, Leo was just out of the question, but even then I would think about Samson. Over the years, since we've worked on I come back to this quite a bit. And now I think that Samson is sort of at the age where you can start seeing some of these traits. Leo, I think, is still a bit too young.
Unless they're very strong in a certain area, it's pretty hard to see at that age.
And I think he's so influenced by siblings. So it's really, he's still sort of kind of cracking that what's the nature nurture element. So I still think that, there's a couple more years before you start actually seeing
the independence
and noticing the personality, as opposed to, he's a little clone of Samson at the moment, but he's got a very big personality brother. And so Samson 100% is an extrovert. Oh my God.
How draining for you.
And if I end up with another extrovert, so extrovert. 3 males in the house extroverted, oh my God, that's going to require...
build a cave. You have to find a cave.
Totally.
Yep.
But he does make me laugh, because I'll catch him, he'll get out of the shower and he'll go and get dressed in his room, and I'll walk past. And he's talking to himself in the mirror. He literally is pulling jokes or faces, and I'm just it astounds me. But he is he is a people person. He loves his friends. And And it's helped me understand that as well, because, you know, there are things that I catch, like me finishing his sentences, like wanting to skip ahead and things like that. And he'll be like, no, you're not listening to me, because he hasn't finished his fully formed, he wants to get through his dialogue
story
before I
you're cutting him off.
yeah, totally. So little things like that has actually really helped. And I actually sat down the other day, you know, knowing that this conversation was coming up, and kind of went through it a bit more. And I reckon he's going to be, at the moment, I feel like he might be very similar to Cam. So he'll be an ENTP, I think.
Yes.
Yep. But yeah, I think it's definitely something. And interestingly, I reckon with homeschooling this year, that actually helped me.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting in his, his schooling classes. It actually helped me see, because that's something you don't see at school, how he works,
how he learns,
how he processes information, how he learns. And he's actually he's a very physical kid, but equally he's very logical. And he loves learning.
And that's wonderful. But isn't that a wonderful thing to find out?
Yeah. Like, he would be the one, this is the classic P's. I'm like, I can't be bothered really doing 9 o'clock on the class, because we're the ones that have got to sit with him and then do the homework and stuff afterwards. Oh, we just won't do it.
So
and Samson will go and get his laptop, and he'd be surfing. Like 9 a.m. sitting there ready to get on. No, we're doing it. And so he's very empowered to do all that stuff himself, whereas Cam and I are like, oh, really? Do we have to do this today?
Don't you hate a driven, responsible child? So frustrating. Oh, my goodness. It is. Yeah. No, we're doing this now. We have to do this. Really? Do we really have to? But it is fantastic to have them like that, you know, and it's great watching their learning, because you don't often get a chance to see them in a classroom role or anything like that either.
No.
So if we're finishing up now, and we were going to talk to your listeners about writing a book, and they might be too scared or time poor or just don't know where to start. Give us a few words of wisdom on what they might do.
Stop overthinking it and start somewhere. Like, get some resources, get some help. I think don't suffer in silence. I think that's the worst thing that you can do. Talk to people you know. Talk to people you know that have started or have created books. I've got heaps of resources on my website that are free that you can start. Do the writing type quiz as a start, because I think the thing is, you don't have to be a good writer to write a book. You just need to understand how to do the foundational elements and how to pull it together and how to find and work with your unique type in order for you to do it. And the way that one person does it, the way that somebody else does it is going to be different. So actually getting people who can support you and you know, work with you through that process, that's the best thing that you can do. So in my experience, and I reckon COVID taught me this too, if you have a burning desire to write a book, then you will do it. It doesn't matter on what is happening in the external world. If it is a burning desire, you will find the means to prioritize it and do it. And there are people, I think, you know, the biggest thing to realize is there are people out there who are really skilled in this area who can help you. So you don't have to do it on your own or wonder how the hell you do it.
That is great to hear.
So that would be my advice.
All right. Thank you. Wonderful words of advice. Thank you, Kelly, for sharing everything today, your wonderful knowledge and insights about life and book writing and personalities. And for those people listening, hopefully there will be more book babies born as a result of this discussion today. All of Kelly's details will be below on the podcast itself. So if you want to write a book and get out there and do it, start at the beginning. Don't do as I did. And use someone like Kelly to make your book amazing. Thank you for being on the show today, Kelly. Really, really loved having you.
Thanks for having me, Kate. Thanks.
Hence, if you want to be an author, you can do it. Whether or not you're an action taker, getting a good book coach might be just what you need. First things first. Find the right coach. All author, coach, editor relationships are exactly that, working relationships. That doesn't necessarily mean you should work with someone just because you like them. It's important to understand how you'll collaborate with them, problem solve, and address issues when results or milestones are not met. Contact Kelly now, and your book idea could be a reality. I'm Kate Mason. Thank you for listening to Personalities, Parenting and Partners. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave a rating and a review. That would help others learn about this podcast. If you have an episode idea, please send a note to thepersonalitycoach@gmail.com. Many thanks to our producers at Podcasts That Pop. Would you do us a favour and recommend this podcast to one friend? Thanks, and see you next time.